For nearly 10 years, Emily and I lived what most would call a perfect life. We met in college, two young dreamers full of ambition and love. We grew together, built a home filled with laughter, traveled across continents, celebrated anniversaries with candlelit dinners, and shared quiet mornings wrapped in each other's warmth. She wasn't just my wife. She was my closest friend, my confidant, my partner in every possible way. Or so I believed. The unraveling didn't happen all at once. It came in whispers, in the silences that stretched too long, in the soft clicks of a phone screen late at night. Emily became distant, less present, always tethered to her phone, and working late far more often than she used to. But I dismissed it. Love has a way of making excuses. I told myself she was just tired, stressed, maybe overwhelmed. I didn't want to see what was right in front of me. Then came a night I'll never forget. I was wiping down the kitchen counter when her phone, left unattended, lit up. It wasn't locked. A message flashed on the screen, short but enough to still my breath. You make me so happy. Can't wait to see you again, Dan. I stood there, frozen, heart thudding in my chest. I wanted to believe it was innocent, maybe a colleague, a misunderstanding, something explainable. But somewhere deep down, I already knew the truth. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. With shaking hands, I opened her phone and read through her messages. And in doing so, I stepped into a reality that tore my world apart. What I found was undeniable. Message after message between her and this man, Dan. They weren't just flirty or suggestive. They were explicit, intimate, filled with emotion. They told each other, I love you. They reminisced about secret dinners, weekend getaways, moments I was never supposed to know existed. She mocked our life in those texts, said she felt trapped, that our marriage felt like a cage. I couldn't breathe. I felt like the ground had vanished beneath me, but I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure, needed the kind of truth you can't look away from. I hired a private investigator. Not because I doubted what I'd seen, but because I needed it laid out undeniable. Within days, he handed me a folder. I sat alone as I opened it, flipping through photos of her and Dan, at a hotel, walking arm in arm after dinner, kissing on the street like they had no care in the world. There were receipts, timestamps, details that made it all real in ways screenshots couldn't. The confrontation came that Friday night. Emily walked in humming a tune, the same one she always sang when she was in a good mood. She had no idea what was waiting for her. I was already seated at the dining table. The evidence spread out in front of me like a trial in session. Hey, babe, she said, smiling like nothing had changed. Sit down, Emily. I replied. My voice was calm, too calm, cold, edged with something unrecognizable even to me. She froze when she saw the photos. Her smile vanished, replaced by panic. At first, she tried to lie. Said Dan was just a friend. Said I was overreacting. But then I began to read her messages aloud. Word for word, detail for detail. Her face crumbled. I didn't mean for it to happen, she cried, tears spilling down her cheeks. It was a mistake. I shook my head, heart numb. You don't accidentally book hotel rooms. You don't accidentally write love notes. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. 1,000 choices. She begged me, said she'd end it, go to therapy, do anything to make things right. But it was too late. The damage was done. My trust, our foundation, it was all gone. I told her to pack a bag and leave. She left that night, suitcase in hand, shoulders hunched like someone carrying the weight of her own wreckage. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt like a mausoleum, cold, still, empty. I thought that was the end of it. But 3 days later, there was a knock at the door. When I opened it, I was met with a stranger's face. Nervous, apologetic, almost afraid. It was Dan. He shifted uncomfortably, hands jammed in his pockets. Look, man, he said, voice low and trembling. I didn't know she was married. She told me you two were separated. I swear I had no idea. At first, I didn't believe him. I wanted to punch him, scream at him, blame him for everything. But something in his eyes, a flicker of regret, a betrayal that mirrored my own, gave me pause. And that's when I realized I wasn't the only one she lied to. I was ready to throw him off my porch. My fists were clenched, adrenaline rushing through me like a storm. But as Dan kept talking, stammering, explaining, I found myself listening. Not because I wanted to, but because something about his words rang painfully true. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't defensive. He looked wrecked, and gradually, piece by piece, the puzzle began to rearrange itself in my mind. Emily hadn't just betrayed me. She had lied to him, too. She told me you were cold. Dan said quietly, eyes fixed on the ground, that you never touched her and never listened. Said she was stuck in a loveless marriage with a man who made her feel invisible. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream. That's not who I am. But instead, I just listened. Dan reached into his pocket and showed me his phone. There they were, the texts, her words, twisted and cruel, painting me as some distant, emotionless shadow of a husband. In one message, she said I was numb to love, that I hadn't held her hand in months. Lies. All of it. When I found out she was married, Dan continued, I ended it that same night. I came here to say I'm sorry, man. I had no idea. There was a silence between us. A heavy, strange kind of quiet. Two men, complete strangers, standing on a porch, bonded not by friendship, but by the same woman's manipulation. We were both just collateral damage. She played us both. I muttered, my voice flat, hollow. Dan nodded. I'm sorry. If I'd known the truth, I never would have touched her. When he left, I stood in the doorway for a long time. The anger was still there, burning low in my gut. But mixed in with it now was something else. Confusion, sorrow, and strangely relief. Dan wasn't a villain. I thought he was. He was just another broken piece in a story neither of us saw coming. In the weeks that followed, I began to rebuild. Slowly. Quietly, I told my close friends and family everything. Not the sugar-coated version, but the raw truth. I stopped entertaining the people who said things like, maybe you can forgive her, or she made a mistake. No, she didn't trip into months of lies. She chose them, over and over again. I filed for divorce. I wasn't going to let her drag me through one more storm. I had already bled enough. Emily tried to reach out. She sent long, chaotic texts, apologies filled with self-pity, half-truths, and desperate promises to change. Once, she even came to the house and knocked for nearly 10 minutes straight. But I didn't open the door. I stood behind it in silence, not because I was unsure, but because I had never been more certain of anything in my life. She no longer had access to me, to my peace, to the version of me that forgave too easily. Months passed. Through mutual friends, I heard her world was slowly unraveling. Dan had cut her off completely. Her reputation at work had started to crack under the weight of the lies. The chaos she created had finally turned back on her. Meanwhile, I was healing. I threw myself into things I had long neglected. Early morning runs, solo travels, new hobbies that had always been waiting quietly in the background. I reconnected with myself, rediscovered the simple joy of being alone, without being lonely. I remembered how it felt to breathe without fear, to sleep without second-guessing the person beside me. Yes, the betrayal nearly destroyed me. But in the wreckage, I found something I didn't expect. Me. It became a turning point, not just an ending, but a rebirth. I learned how to set boundaries, how to choose myself over guilt, how to rebuild a life not around someone else, but within myself. I learned that love, true love, is sacred. But trust? Once shattered, it's almost impossible to piece back together. As for Emily, she faded into the past. Not with bitterness, just with quiet finality. A name I no longer flinched at. A story I survived. A lesson I'll never forget.